Okay, whenever you're ready.
I am ready. I'm calling this Back Bay Architectural Commission public hearing to order at 5 p.m. on June 11th, 2025. You may participate in this hearing by going to our Zoom meeting link in our agenda posted online at https://www.boston.gov public notices 163-823-06 or by calling 301-715-8592 and entering ID number 962-9070-5021. You may also submit written comments or questions to backbayac@boston.gov. In accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, we're conducting this hearing online. To ensure public access to the deliberations of the Back Bay Architectural Commission, the public may access this call through telephone and video conferencing. Members of the public will have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. If you're calling in and cannot use the platform, you may press *9 to raise your hand, or you may send your questions to staff via email at backbayac@boston.gov. Public comment will be limited to 2 minutes per person and should be focused on a project's exterior architectural features, which includes landscaping. Issues related to use, street traffic, and noise are outside of the Commission's purview.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. I'll just do the roll call of commissioners who are present. We have Genia Dimitriadis, Tom High, Franklin Ross, David Sampson, Kathy Connor, and Tanvi Nair. And myself, Joseph Cornish, Director of Design Review for the Back Bay Architectural Commission, and Sarah Lawton, who is a Preservation Assistant for the Office of Historic Preservation.
Hi, Sarah.
So I know I've switched things up a little bit, so we're going to start with the ratification of the minutes.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
To approve?
Great, thank you, Jean.
Motion to approve?
And
Thank you.
All right, that's Genia and Tom. All right, Genia, do you vote yes?
Yes.
Tom High?
Yes.
Franklin Ross?
Abstain.
David Sampson?
Abstain.
Kathy Connor?
Yes.
And Tanvi Nair?
Yes.
Great, thank you. All right, and we can move to project number 1.
That's great. It's application 25.0926. It's 204 Beacon Street. Is there someone here for the project at 204 Beacon Street, please?
Yes, Garrett Goodridge and Stefan Castellucci.
Wonderful, thank you. And if you could hold on one moment, gentlemen, Joe is going to read his staff notes and then the floor will be yours.
Great.
Okay, the proposed work is that the front garden reconstructed deteriorated retaining wall. Staff notes that 204 Beacon Street is a 5-story stone row house built between 1862 to 1863. At the May 14th, 2025 hearing, the Commission denied without prejudice an application to remove the existing pear tree at the front garden of this property. Staff recommends approval with provisos, finding that the proposed repair work is consistent with the Commission's design guidelines and the applicant intends to retain the existing tree. While the existing fence is not historic, it is encouraged that the fence be retained or replaced with a historically appropriate fence as stated in the design guidelines. So I have your presentation just to familiarize everyone of the property. Here's the property. You can see my cursor. Here is the walkway, and this is the retaining wall that we're discussing here. Okay, so would you like to share your screen, or would you like, you can just have me move forward if you'd like.
I can share the screen in case I have to zoom into anything, at least with some imagery. If that's
Okay,
no problem.
yep. So I'm going to stop sharing and you can go right ahead.
Excellent. All right. All right, so thank you everyone for taking the time to review this project this evening. Joe kind of gave a recap of what we discussed sort of generally speaking last month, but just to reiterate, like we originally proposed or submitted an application regarding the tree, but we have recalibrated based on feedback from the commission and the neighborhood association, and are now focusing on the retaining wall itself and the immediate surrounding built environment. The goal of this revised proposal is to rebuild and stabilize the failing retaining wall and to improve the egress path from the garden level unit and the shared space that's directly below the front stoop. In short, we want to make this area safer, more code compliant, and more functional for residents and visitors alike. In this existing condition documentation, you can see in the photos that the wall has deteriorated pretty significantly and continues to do so. Chunks of granite and mortar are falling and can be easily removed by hand. A structural engineer and a mason assessed the site and agreed that it's beyond repair in its current state, and due to years of neglect and earth movement within the garden, it's created a pretty dramatic pinch point at the sort of the egress point coming out of the garden level unit. That's down to almost like a 2-foot span. So it makes it very difficult to come in and out, especially as the primary means of egress. The mason also identified several tripping hazards, not just related to the retaining wall, but the steps leading up to the sidewalk, the brick pavers spanning the distance between the steps and the sidewalk. And these uneven and irregular conditions. Well, also he did note that the riser heights of the granite steps, they're inconsistent and irregular. Same thing with the tread depths, and so we want to address that as part of our proposal. We've actually had visitors, my mother-in-law, Stefan's mom, trip and hurt herself, so anything we can do to address that. But generally, the consensus is that we need to rebuild the wall, and that will require a trench. We discussed this last month. We've discussed this in more detail too with the neighborhood association, and the trench that we've discussed with the structural engineer, with the mason, various players involved here, with our condo association involved as well, is probably going to be about a 3-foot to 3.5-foot L-shaped zone that spans the full length of the retaining wall as well as the curb up to the sidewalk and along the building's facade. And we intend to salvage as much of the existing material as possible, hopefully so that we can reinstall it, at least in part. And then based on our conversation with the mason, depending on the condition of the removed material, new material may ultimately need to be introduced. And if that's the case, we've specified reclaimed materials that match the originals as closely as possible. The same or very similar brick paver for any infill and resetting of this zone here, as well as a newly established landing at the base of the steps. And also reclaimed material, same type of granite, hopefully, if we need to make up the difference of something that's, can't be accommodated with the material that's currently in situ. We also, as part of this, obviously, since it was sort of the focus last time, we need to work around the existing pear tree. And rather than pursuing its removal, we heard everyone loud and clear, and we understand the concerns there. But we had an arborist revisit the site to assess potential impact. And he shared the following, and I'm quoting here, that work occurring in such close proximity to the pear tree will cause a direct effect to the tree. The existing tree is to remain unless negatively impacted by the construction and the make safe efforts. And per the arborist's assessment, if the roots are cut only 2 feet from the trunk, this would increase the likelihood of tree failure. So we're noting that here because we recognize that we are definitely going to be within that sort of 2-foot zone. But of course, all efforts are still going to be made to keep the tree. And it's also important to note, sort of echoing conversations we've had with the condo association or the management company, is that it's clearly a liability concern for the condo association, that the tree's stability during and after construction will need to be closely monitored. And at last week's neighborhood association meeting, members seemed to appreciate the intent to preserve the tree, but they also acknowledge that if it doesn't survive, or it's not for lack of effort. We're doing everything we can to keep it in place and hopefully improve the conditions and make it healthier in the long run. But we still wanted to flag that, but not the primary focus here. So moving on to the proposed conditions more specifically, we're showing that the egress path, sort of starting here at the landing and the retaining wall, we're showing the egress path would be squared off and the curb would be leveled and made plumb. We're also requesting to increase the width of this zone by a few inches to gain a code-compliant 36-inch clear path. There are several precedents, even just on our block, that have maximized this path to the lower level unit. So it seems reasonable, hopefully, that an additional 4 inches from its existing width would be acceptable to the commission. At the landing, we're proposing brick pavers to match the ones closer to the sidewalk.
And those, excuse me, those would be running bond?
Yes, they would be.
Good.
The only difference is that we are showing more of a border condition at the perimeter of the landing. But the rest of it would follow the same direction, running bond, same sizing and layout as this area here.
And you're not proposing a border on the upper area.
No.
Good.
We would only be because of the shifted retaining wall, the shifted curb associated with it. We would only be toothing in about a course or two of new brick to infill that gap,
Okay.
but still maintaining that layout. Another thing to note too, at least with the landing down below, it currently is in really rough shape. We put a mat out there to try to keep it more consistently level, but it's needs to be properly drained, pitched to drain, and hopefully we can tie into the building's existing drainage system or upgrade the catch basin underneath. As Joe noted at the beginning, there is an aspect to this where we had called for the removal of the existing fence around the garden. This at first was more in response to just needing access to the space, so it would need to be removed regardless. And in terms of implementing a new fence, the condition of the current fence is in varying degrees of deterioration, lots of rust. There are several newel posts along the balustrade that have become separated from the curb. So it will need to be addressed no matter what. And I can speak to that. I have a separate supplemental document that I shared with Joe last week that zones in on that more specifically. But the other thing worth mentioning before we switch to that is this zone here of the brick. We want to level that out as well. Again, just try to minimize any tripping hazards and anything that we can do to, basically create a better grading both in the garden and the walking path for residents and visitors alike would be ideal. One thing that I wanted to mention, shifting back briefly to the retaining wall, sort of the reason why we're here tonight. At the side of the retaining wall, it would be great to ultimately reuse the granite and maybe perhaps as a veneered condition. But when we spoke to the mason, they couldn't determine the feasibility of this material without physically getting in there and during demolition to understand what thicknesses they're working with. And so if it ends up being somewhat of a lost cause, we wanted to include at least some type of contingency option where we've seen precedent in Back Bay along Beacon Street, where they have a similar, maybe not granite, but an aggregated curb. And again, we'd be trying to maintain our granite curb. But below that, that historic element, the vertical surface is parged and then painted historic color. So that would be sort of our backup if, for whatever reason, we can't use the granite material that's being saved. And then I included some precedent imagery with just other gardens sort of flanking our property. And to close out the our presentation anyway, we wanted to note that there are dimensions and specifications all noted in the drawings. And when we were speaking with the neighborhood association, it came up that, wanting to provide further clarification. So we made sure to submit supplemental documentation, hopefully to provide that clarification on any specifications. For instance, I forgot to mention earlier, I apologize, a handrail being introduced at the side wall of the stoop, both as a safety measure and sort of in response to the removal of the fence. Not that the fence is currently used for that purpose, but in that case, we would be specifying a Julius Bloom profile, which is also in that spec doc. So sort of summarizing, it's a very small footprint, but there's a lot going on. And, we tried to be as thorough as possible, both historically and also just being mindful of our fellow owners here at 204 Beacon. We're happy to be the representatives having a little bit of background in this, but at the same time, we want to be very mindful that there's expense and costs associated with all of this work. And at the end of the day, it's necessary work, but it's really rooted in life safety. So thank you.
Can I just ask you, because your comments were excellent, and I want to thank you, first of all, for coming back with this proposal, which to me makes a lot of sense. The one area that I wasn't clear on is the question of whether or not you will be reinstalling or replacing the fence, which,
Sure.
in my opinion, is an important feature of the architecture.
Sure.
We have historic precedent that originally there were stone balustrades, then they were replaced with iron. The iron in 6 of the 8 of the buildings that are all together was donated during World War II, and then some of it was put back. And I think it's very important that the fence be restored. But it wasn't clear to me where you were going on that.
Yes, so this was brought up during the neighborhood association meeting last week, and something that wasn't originally included in the original submission. And so we've submitted this as sort of a supplement to that documentation, both documenting sort of along this stretch, sort of our flanking neighbors, the different properties that either do have a reintroduced or maybe historic condition and others that don't. We were sort of responding in part to our direct neighbors at 202 Beacon Street and 206 Beacon Street. 206 has I'll call it I labeled it as a modular kit. It's not appropriate, but so in our eyes, it's effectively not a fence there. But we also recognize that there are more historic properties or more sort of historic conditions that we could try to, replicate or get closer to. I think 198 Beacon Street, of course, has the original condition seemingly, and this would be an very extensive cost for building.
I would love to see you do that, but I don't think it would be reasonable. But I do think you need to put back the iron fence.
Yes, and so what we were going to propose is actually, I'll zoom in here since there's a lot of information on this slide. Oop. So what we were going to request in the event that this was going to be a request from the commission is if we could maintain and basically repair the existing section of the current fence that runs parallel to the sidewalk. Part of the reason for only requesting this section is because when we move the curb to create the code compliant egress path, we're going to be increasing this return by about 4 inches. Actually, at this point, it might not be as dramatic as it is where we walk in and out of the building. However, there was some concern about if we were to turn the corner and have it terminate maybe just before the first steps down to the garden level unit, then we would need to replace it in its entirety, a completely new design, probably material. And there was concern that even at the neighborhood association meeting, they vocalized, do your neighbors, are they aware of this? And I think that it would be a little bit of a shock to them that they would need to now pay more for something that hopefully we can just maintain and improve this condition as opposed to adding to the expense. But
so what you're proposing is retaining the fence that runs parallel to the sidewalk and just terminating it at the corner.
Yes, with this newel post. And then we would.
Why would it not be possible, as I'm looking at your fence, to continue it to the next newel post?
Because
which is just right where it should be, and then you could discontinue it from that point on if you're concerned about where it meets the stairs and the windows.
If it's allowable to only address this stemmed from the path being square and plumb to the building. And so if we were to reestablish this curb 4 inches inward, then the existing fence wouldn't fall on top of the curb. And so there would be a little bit of manipulation involved.
Oh, I see, because you're not going to shorten the curb at the street, at the sidewalk. You're just going to shorten the curb running north-south.
Correct.
I see.
It's possible that we could do that. We could, the way that it's documented and, some other examples next door, that curb does extend beyond the curb that we're talking about that's perpendicular to the building. So we figured that it would be hopefully more acceptable to just leave this curb parallel to the sidewalk as is, perhaps try to reset it since it's a little wonky right now. And then repair this section of the fence because it is probably the in the best condition compared to the rest of the fence. I think it would be great if we could turn it and just have it sort of die at the start of the stoop, a couple.
I think I'm going to be prepared to make a motion, and I think in that motion, I'm going to suggest that you retain the fence and retain it on that turn with a final decision remanded to staff, because as you're getting into the project, I think there may be ways in which you can do it. Definitely retain the sidewalk and if possible, retain the north-south up to the where it joins with the wall on the left.
Right.
Tom, I think I agree with you. I think you'll find a nice solution right after you get into it.
Yeah, hopefully that resetting this portion of the curb, try to make it a little bit more level as well. And maybe if there's any space that can be gleaned from sort of the space between the bollard and the existing newel post, maybe we can try to squeeze in or make up that discrepancy with the curb shifting.
Yeah.
But yes, that would be fine.
I'm a little more concerned about the tree. I'd love to hear from the garden club about that. I'm not sure if we need to. I know you're going to work with trying to keep that tree, but that's fairly important. That's a big tree there.
Yeah, I think, David, I think what we discussed, and I don't think you were at the meeting last month.
I wasn't.
Yeah, and I think we should hear from the garden club, but they had suggested the approach which the applicant is now putting forward of hand digging a trench and doing what they could do to try to preserve the tree. And if not, the tree would get replaced. There will be a tree there, but my understanding is that there really isn't any other alternative, and they are going to try to do everything they can to preserve the tree if they can.
Okay, I got it. Thanks, Tom, for getting me up to speed. Sorry for not being informed.
And
We
actually
also
on the slide it showed that
one slide more. There's a
one, Joe.
contingency that
that red circle.
when we spoke to the arborist, he said if they aren't able to maintain the tree, if it's unstable, if it sacrificed its health, then he recommended a replacement tree, of course, approved by the commission or the garden club, but in a slightly different location, moving it away from the building, but still centered within the garden.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Great.
All right, I'll
Now
just bring our script up.
Thank you very much, Joe. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. If you're calling in and cannot use the platform, you may press *9 to raise your hand, or you may send your questions to staff via email at backbayac@boston.gov. Public comment will be limited to 2 minutes per person and should be focused on a project's exterior architectural features, which includes landscaping. Issues related to use, street traffic, and noise are outside of the commission's purview. Do we have any public comments?
Okay, I see Lori Thomas. Lori, would you like to make your comment?
Yes, thank you, Joe. Hi, everyone. Lori Thomas with the Tree Committee. We've been looking at this tree and thinking about it for a long time. We recognize that this is a risky situation, but we have seen other situations in the neighborhood where a tremendous amount of trenching has been done close to a tree. For example, 29 Commonwealth Avenue, Haddon Hall, where there was a really old historic magnolia that had a lot of its roots exposed for an extremely long time as they were putting utilities into that luxury condo building. 131 Commonwealth, and also a giant elm in front of the Air Mansion. All of those trees managed to survive, so we're keeping our fingers crossed that this one will. We also know that the applicants are working with a very good arborist, Tyler Ledeen. I have talked to him. He is somewhat optimistic about this tree. He knows all the latest techniques for protecting roots, treating trees, doing air spading to help save the roots, and so on. So we feel that he'll do the best job that he can, and we hope this works. If it doesn't work, we also know that we all did the best that we can, and we would be happy to suggest a replacement tree at that time. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. Serge, would you like to make your comments?
Yes, thank you, Serge Savard. I'm the co-chair of the Architecture Committee for the Neighborhood Association of the Back Bay. We met the applicant again this month about this application, and we think that this is a greatly improved proposal for both saving the tree and providing I think a pretty efficient solution to the problem that they have right now. The only thing is we would recommend that probably some of the details of, especially the fence that we had a discussion about, and also the handrail for the stairs, the exact design, the shape, and all that, we probably reminded to staff to see exactly the details of what will be suggested here to match really something that is coherent for the neighborhood, but overall something that we're comfortable with. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
And
Mr.
Sue
Superintendent.
Prindle.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I was particularly concerned about the loss of the fence, and I appreciate the architects looking at the idea of truncating the return to the house. I think that would work fine if you stopped it at the bottom of the main stair. And I think the handrail, as a senior citizen, I think the handrail will be a great asset to everybody that uses those stairs. So thank you.
Great, thank you. And I should say, there is some detail of the railing, which looks good to me.
Yeah.
Great, thanks, Chair.
All right, I'm not seeing any other public comment, so we can move. Tom?
Okay, move we approve with the provisos that the garden fence be retained or replaced with a fence of historically appropriate design, with the north-south portion shortened to the end of the top of the stairs if possible, with the final design approved by staff. Second, that the materials used for the rebuilt wall and stairs be approved by staff. And third, that if it is not possible to preserve the existing tree, it will be replaced with a tree of a species and caliper approved by staff in consultation with the Garden Club.
Well, second.
Okay, I will do the roll call vote. Gina Dimitriadis,
Yes.
Tom High,
Yes?
Franklin Ross,
Yes.
David Sampson,
Yes.
Kathy Connor,
Yes.
and Tom B. Nair.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Thank you. So I'll be in touch soon. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, we're going on to the next application, which is 25.0886, 115 Commonwealth Avenue. Is there someone here from 115 Commonwealth Avenue, please?
Roberto, I believe you're here. You should be able to, I think I made you a co-host. And Rebecca, let me find you. All right, Rebecca, if you can introduce yourself.
There we go. I'll lower this just a little bit. Good evening. How are you? Thank you so much for hosting us. I'm Rebecca Werner from Gregory Lombardi Design, and I'm joined this evening by my colleague, Roberto, as Joe mentioned, Roberto Carmona. I'm here to represent 115 Commonwealth Ave. And so I'm happy to jump in whenever you want. I know you probably want to make your staff report, Joe. So
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So the project that we're reviewing is that rear elevation alterations to existing rear L deck, including installation of new decking, planters, outdoor kitchen, water feature, screening, and decorative surrounds at existing window and door, and at roof, alterations to existing deck, including installation of new decking, planters, mechanical enclosure, and trellises. So I just want to emphasize these are existing decks, so that these decks already exist. These are alterations and improvements to the existing deck structures. Staff notes that 115 Commonwealth Avenue is a 4-story stone row house built between 1876 to 1877 and designed by Cummings and Sears Architects. The proposed project does not propose to expand the size of either deck, but adds new decorative and utilitarian features. It should also be noted that the existing rear L deck at 115 Commonwealth Avenue abuts an existing deck of similar size and design at 113 Commonwealth Avenue. Staff recommends approval with provisos, finding that the proposed changes that are inconsistent with the design guidelines, specifically the privacy screening at the rear L deck, will not be visible from the ground and is not obstructing any open views. The proposed decorative window and door surrounds are inconsistent with the historic design and character of this building and should be omitted from the project. Instead, perhaps planters, trellises, and plants could be considered as an alternative. And I just want to show you the view. So this is looking from the alley. This is just off of the public area. This is the building here. So this is the rear L deck. And there's a temporary structure, I think, for construction out there now.
that's correct.
And then, oops, sorry. And here it is a little closer. So this is the deck, and there is a very similar deck at the building next door. So Rebecca, would you like to share your screen, or would you like me to show
I'm
your
happy
screen?
to share, Joe.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, I'll just stop sharing. Great, thank you.
So Joe was kind enough to take some time to meet with Roberto and I to have a preliminary discussion about this project, and he was able to give us a little bit of guidance. So we actually have already pulled back on the proposal a bit based on his recommendations. And we removed some of this privacy screen that was originally proposed as it felt like it was not going to be accepted by the commission. So I want to say that we've already gone through and done that before I roll into the presentation here. But just to cite everybody, show you where our locus is. Of course, we're right on Commonwealth Avenue, this building 115. The decks that are proposed are going to be, well, here's a nice overhead so you can see that, but primarily the back will be in the public alley, the fourth floor terrace. And then the existing deck on the head house is much higher and much simpler in proposal anyways, above that. So just reorienting you here now, this is the rear public alley kitchen terrace, and then the head house terrace here. So the public alley is here, and the Commonwealth Avenue drive is on the opposite side. And just to give a sense of elevations, we have like 14 plus 14 elevation in the public alley. The fourth floor deck is 55 and change, and then the head house is 79.5. So we'll start with the kitchen terrace. We'll show you the existing conditions to begin with. It is an existing deck. It does have an existing railing. We're not proposing changing the substructure or the railing itself. This is the property line right here to the neighboring deck that Joe pointed out for us. There's an existing access point for emergency reasons. In the case of fire, it allows this neighbor at 113 to access this deck and get down in an emergency situation down the fire escape on this deck. I point that out because it's kind of a precarious current condition right now. There is existing screening here that screens utilities and electrical. There's an existing chimney. This is the door access to the building and an existing step. There's an existing fire ladder right here, an existing hose bib, and a series of ventilation points here. There's an exhaust vent here, and an exhaust vent here that provides exhaust for the neighboring parcel. That there's two owners to this building, and there's so we need to provide exhaust abilities for the kitchen and such for the neighboring parcel. So here's some existing conditions photos. You can see some of the fence here. There's this access point. You actually, if you access the deck, you come through this cutout in the fencing from the neighbors, and you go straight into an existing fence, unfortunately, on this 115. And then there's a small door that has got it's actually automatically closing, so you have to push through a 1 foot, maybe it's 13, 14 inches, little door to be able to get into the access and go out down the stairs. So I'll show you a diagram of that in just a moment, but we do have existing privacy panels and some screen. There's a large opening behind this, but there's a fair number of utility access panels that are hidden behind this utility screen as well. You can see the vent here in the wall, and you can also see the exhaust vent right here that we have to acknowledge and protect. Moving on, this is the route that one would take in an emergency scenario from 113. They'd have to make a small jump into a narrow It reminds me of a cattle sluice. It's very, very narrow here. Then take a left-hand turn, push through this this funny door, and then run across the deck and down the stairway. So it's less than ideal from a safety standpoint. So the proposal is to add some planters. So refinish the deck. We are again working with the substructure that's there. The fence remains the same, though we'd like to paint it the same color if we can, just because it's in a little bit of disrepair right now. We're proposing planters for some plantings around the edges of this deck. We're proposing a grill over here. We have another planter here, a small water feature in front of the chimney, countertop space, and then this is all millwork to, again, screen the utilities beyond while respecting some of the vents. So it's in wood here. There's a small cabinet that is being proposed to house a hose bib over here, and then a artificial turf pad right in this area. And then this is the step that we're going to continue to have in this area. So the elevation of the deck will stay exactly the same. The railing height stays exactly the same. The layout of the deck is very similar. We're adding planters and a couple of features for the clients. So I wanted to just show the current conditions for the privacy screening that is out there already. And so the red represents obviously what was an existing condition. The yellow represents what we are proposing here. You can see there's a lot of unsightly utilities that are occurring at the top of the chimney. And then, of course, beyond this, you can see the squares of the utility uses in the back here. Those are panels that will still need to be accessed, of course, but we're hoping to do it through some hidden doors if we can, just so that they're not so obvious. There's a number of I looked out through here, just conduit and electrical stuff behind this millwork right now. Here's the exhaust vent that I mentioned, and here's the second exhaust vent that's coming up through the deck itself. Moving on, this is an elevation of that same view. The materials that are being selected are the metal planters would be done in a black metal. We have a dark gray proposed for the millwork. We are nodding at the use of copper in the back bay, and we'd like to add a little copper element to a chimney cap to screen some of the utility uses that are on top of that chimney. The countertop that's proposed here would be in a granite, and then there would be a lattice detail in the panels here in the millwork.
May I ask a question here at this
Yes,
point?
of course.
Joe, you indicated that this screening would not be visible from the alley at any point. Is that correct? You're muted.
I didn't see a mock-up, but from what I could see looking down, it didn't look like it was going to be visible, but I probably should be confirmed with a mock-up.
Yeah, or it could be deferred to you to confirm, so.
And we'd be happy to produce that, of course, for the commission. We're proposing a bit of a like fenestration ornamentation around the doors and the window here. So it's basically a millwork frame that we're proposing around the door and the window. This little square here is reflecting the small storage cabinet that would house the hose bib, a hose and hose bib.
Can I just comment on that also?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I agree completely with Joe that this is entirely inappropriate. We have never approved any sort of millwork covering the existing rear elevations. This is quite different from the sidewall here. And I think this would be setting an incredibly bad precedent for the commission to approve. So.
Thank you. Just showing you that in elevation, what that might look like. We are proposing a gunmetal gray again for that. And then the countertop for the storage counter would be again the granite. And we already spoke about the lattice work. We did try to your point, sir, we did try to look around and find some images around the Back Bay to see if there were any kind of similar-esque precedents out there to find. And we did find a few images that may or may not be supportive of this. They're interesting. They do show kind of some ornamentation around there. And if you would like to see them, I'd be happy to share them. But
well, I think I would suggest that they would be relevant only if you could provide the approvals as well. And I don't think they were
very good
approved.
point. They seem to be architectural elements, like just like built into window sills and door sills and stuff like that. So, but maybe this is not the same exactly. So. But I'm happy to forward those on to you, Joe, if that might be useful for somebody to look at, or I can pull them up if they're of interest. So.
Yeah, and this is where I thought, I mean, maybe as an alternative, it could be some kind of plants and planters or something, some kind of freestanding trellis that's not attached to the building.
I appreciate the feedback. On this side, we have the planters in green shown here and the grill right in this location.
Was there a mock-up of the grill?
There was not a mock-up of the grill.
I believe you
Happy
did
to
have some.
provide it.
You did have some drawings in your presentation before that showed the visibility of it, and it was quite visible.
I do have a view that I can show you in just a moment of the grill behind it and the front. Quickly, do you want me to go straight to that, Mr. High, or do you want me to just?
But just continue on.
It's the next slide.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's quite all right. So it's again black metal planters, gray for the millwork, granite, and this lattice panel for the infills of the cabinetry. So this is that view that we did go ahead and look at with you, or we sent in that you're referring to, I believe. So it shows in green the planters. The yellow is the kitchen, the grill, and then these are the window frames around that. They're not completely, it's not as completely different than this. I guess we're not really showing the lintel in here being remaining. So you can see from a person's view, and you're looking up and over the millwork on this side here, but the back of the kitchen would be visible. And we did get some feedback from the neighborhood association and about the visibility of that and the possibility of relocating it to the opposite side of the deck. But we have a number of conflicts, as I've tried to point out here, which I might not have made clear enough to the neighborhood association, but those exhaust vents that are existing and coming out of the vent, out of the deck and out of the wall are in conflict, obviously, with the gas grill. And we also have code issues of bringing the grill too close to combustibles. So that's part of the explanation, I guess, I would give for trying to keep it on this side. I would love to suggest a material of that would be in pairing with the planters. All of the planters are black here. And if, I'd like to just offer that if this went to like a black that matched the back of the planters, we've tried to select the black to be in pairing with the fence itself and not, pop out and be opposing to that color. We felt like it would kind of go away, but we could consider that material there in matching the same of the planters as well, if that was amenable to the commission. So if we're okay with what I've presented here for the fourth floor, I'd like to take you up to the head house, which is very simple.
Can I ask a question on the on the sort of decorative door surrounds?
Sure.
The reasoning for that, is there any sort of, you know, structural, it's just purely decorative?
It's a decorative element for sure.
Just
Yeah.
decorative element.
Mhm.
And there's no, you're not widening the door, the window?
No, we're not touching the doors or window.
Just want to understand.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
No, I would just add, I don't see any issue with the cabinet to cover the hose bib. So I was just referring to the surrounding the door and the window.
Mhm. Yeah, I did want to point out that the proposal did respect the lintel above the door, as well as the entire door casing in the window. That was no touch zone for us. Okay. Any other questions on the fourth floor right now? Okay. Moving up to the uppermost floor, I'll just go through existing conditions. Again, they're very similar to what is being proposed. It just needs some love up there. So we're working with the existing structure to support the deck. There will be, we will be replacing the deck boards up there. It is a wood structure. There is railing up there. We would like to refinish them just because they're all chipped up and such, but in the exact same color and finish that is out there right now. So repair and replace. There's a skylight up there that is being maintained, light fixtures that are being untouched. This is the door that comes through. I'm sorry, I should have oriented you, but this is Commonwealth Ave on this side, and the alley side is back here. There's an existing equipment screen that's a low screen over here just to hide some utility AC condensers over there. So, and then there's several, so there's AC units back here, and then there's several utility uses in a hose bib on this wall. So the proposal, well, let me show you the picture of that first. We're proposing, so this is the site, the same view or a view of that upper terrace. You can see there's kind of an unsightly old roof line and patch job here that was done, which we'd like to try to clean it up and get it back to a state of just brick right there. So there's the skylight. We're proposing in green, planters around the perimeter. There is a utility screen here. We'd like to just move it up just slightly because there's, yeah, so as is shown in the yellow, and then we're going to resurface the deck here. There's another view looking back at the utilities. And here's what's being proposed. We're respecting the skylight. We have the safety rail around the skylight, planter on this side. The planter runs in front of it, planter on this side, and then around the perimeter. As I mentioned, we're adjusting slightly the location of that screen for the utilities, but we're bringing it inward. So I don't believe there's no way anybody could see that from a public way, front or back. Resurfacing the deck. So that's really it. That's it. It's very simple. But doing it in an elevation will show you that. It shows planters. Here's the screen. These are the existing units for the AC. And we'd like to do a bit of a, as Joe was describing, maybe for downstairs, a planted trellis on the wall to kind of, if we're not so successful removing some of that unsightly mess on the wall, we'd like to just at least put some green up over it and be able to, you know, screen it a little bit from that perspective. And then the railing stays, just gets refinished. And again, the colors for this, black against the railings should be pretty subtle. And the fencing would be a dark charcoal. And then we're showing a little picture of what the growth might be supported by. And here's the last slide, and it shows what our proposal is for the privacy screen there for the utility screen. Again, it would be a lattice work, and we're keeping it low. It's what I think we have this at 4 feet, and so we want to keep the views open because it's spectacular up there. So again, it'll be done in a dark gray here.
Rebecca, I was looking at your roof layout. Forgive me, but I didn't see any. Is there any HVAC units up there?
That's what this area is here, Mr. Sampson. That's what we have for the so they're AC condensers up here.
Are they currently there now?
They are currently there now.
So you're not moving them at all?
No, we don't want to. We just want to hide them.
Yeah.
Don't want to look at them.
Okay.
I think the roof, I don't think I have any real concerns about. I think it would have been good if it could have been mocked up, which I don't believe it was, so that we could see from the middle of the mall whether any of the planters and so forth would be visible. But given where the deck is located, I have a feeling that's not going to be a significant issue. The two things that are of concern to me, and I'll be prepared to make a motion on this that reflects this, are the elimination of the millwork around the doors or anything else on the rear elevation, which, as I commented already, is, I think, would be a unique and inappropriately not historic modification, and I think that it should be denied. And secondly, the very great visibility of the grill and associated counter. And I think that does need to be located so that it is not visible from the alley. We have not, I don't believe, ever allowed cooking facilities or anything that resembled cooking facilities to be visible from the public way. I think there are some decks on the ultimate roof which do have cooking facilities. I don't know of any that are on L's, but that's a matter of use. But if they're there, they should not be visible. And so I would think that really almost everything we're talking about, other than the millwork, is the extent of the visibility, which I would be comfortable with making it clear that they shouldn't be visible and deferring that to the staff to confirm. And that would be the kind of motion that I would be proposing.
Can we get a mock-up of the grill and a mock-up of the deck made?
We could absolutely prepare a mock-up for you for this. We don't necessarily have, we'll work with the builder that's inside the building perhaps to see if they can mock it up for us.
David, my only reason for not saying let's continue this till next meeting is I hate to delay them in their work. And I think this is something that we could have Joe confirm. But Joe, I don't know, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Or you could create a subcommittee if you wanted to do that, and that way you could go out with.
Again, that's going to delay things. I think we could. I think the issue is making sure that none of this is visible. It's that simple. So.
Or very limited, at the very least. But you still got to kind of get some sort of mock-up to do it. Maybe we can agree about the casings there, Tom, and then have them do a quick mock-up and refer it to staff.
Yeah.
Any other feedback, commissioners?
I mean, I'll just say, I think the grill in its current location is going to be visible unless you.
Yeah, it's going to have to be moved.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be the result. And if it can't be moved, it may have to be eliminated. But I simply could not support having something that large and utilitarian showing so much from the alley.
If I may, if we have the planters running along this edge of the wall, It's going to be a black powder coated metal. If that appeared to spread or go right behind the kitchen, the grill, like would that,
You would still see the grill above it,
you'd
unless your grill is going to be below the fence line, which it isn't.
let me see that.
Your drawing shows it significantly higher. You
It
go
does
back
show
to
it a
that
bit
picture.
higher, sir. You're right.
I don't think that's possible.
I'm wondering if we would be able to maybe mock that up like with a panel and see if that would be visible from that cone of view. But I'm just
I think that's what we're suggesting. What I'm suggesting is that we make the decision that it not be visible, and you demonstrate to Joe that that's the case.
So it's the top piece of it that you're concerned with.
Well, it's the visual, I think we have allowed planters along the edges of railings before. Am I correct?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yes. Yep.
So planters there would be fine. If it would look like a planter, that would be fine, with green stuff growing out of it. But when it's a utilitarian oven rising up above the level of the railing, I think that's inappropriate.
we'd be happy to mock this up for staff to review. And this has been super informative to us, so I definitely appreciate the feedback. How should we go about, Joe, should I just reach out to you when I have arrangements for that?
Well, they haven't made their motion yet, so we
I'm so sorry. I should know
Yeah.
better. I'm
that's
chair
okay.
in my own town, so sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it may be the case, I mean, in looking at this, it doesn't look, I don't know what the dimension is, but it doesn't look like it's that much taller than the railing. So
No,
maybe there is
should-
even a way
Should be doable.
it can be made lower. I don't know. Maybe there's some
We are creative.
creative
We'll
ways.
get
Yeah, okay.
creative.
All right.
Good. All right, Tom, you're on deck.
Well, we have public comment.
Yeah,
Oh,
we do.
public
So,
comment.
but you're
Yep.
prepared to make a motion, so we'll
I
come back
am.
to you. How's that? Great.
All right. Okay, Kathy, can you see the script?
I can, thanks, Joe. Members of the public will now have an opportunity, except something got in the way there, to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. If you're calling in and cannot use the platform, you may press *9 to raise your hand, or you may send your questions to staff via email at backbayac@boston.gov. Public comment will be limited to 2 minutes per person and should be focused on a project's exterior architectural features, which include landscaping. Issues related to use, street traffic, and noise are outside of the commission's purview. And Serge, I see that you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, thank you, Kathy, and thank you again, Serge Savard, Association of the Back Bay. Our concern also were centered on a little bit on the same topics. The grill obviously is one. As Commissioner High was mentioning, one of the options could be that you actually have planters all along, including behind the cooktop, and the cooktop is in front of a planter, and maybe the planter would hide it, and maybe with the angle would hide it completely. So one option was to put the planter completely behind the cooktop to make it so from the alley we only see planters all around, but actually the cooktop would be in front of that planter. That could be something that you could look. But I think here, as was mentioned, I think the mock-up will be the key elements that will be able to decide this. Another thing that we didn't notice on the plans is there is also what is called a water feature, and we were not clear exactly. We did meet the applicant and the design team during our meeting, but it's a question we forgot to ask during the meeting, and we were curious exactly what that water feature is specifically. For the rest of the options, we discussed also with the next door neighbor that was at our meeting. regarding the emergency egress, and there seems to have communication between the two group, and I'm not sure if he's here and is gonna probably ask further comments on this, but at least there's communication between about this emergency path that is needed for fire escape. So on this front, I think, but we would still think that it would be good to have the ISD and fire department really finalize and confirm the fire egress here, that it's compliant with what the city expect here. Thank you.
Thank you, Serge. Sue?
All right, Sue, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I was just concerned. This is quite visible from down the alley, and I'm not entirely clear on what the commission standards are about those angled views. I agree that a lot of it is not visible from right across the alley, but once you step down a couple of doors, it's pretty much something that you can see. Also, she mentioned that she had reduced the size of the privacy screen. I did not see that in the drawing, so I wondered if that could be clarified exactly how that screen has been reduced in size. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
If I may.
Yes, of course.
Susan, the privacy screen we had previously provided shown something behind the grill itself. Oh, thank you so much, Joe. It had come up proud of the grill. And the advice that we received from Joe was to make sure that everything stayed and behaved to the railing. So, and that probably would not have been received well by the commission. So we pulled that out altogether.
The privacy screen on the other side is being enlarged quite a bit. Is there any concern about that?
No, I don't have concern. I think, if we can see a mock-up of it, that will be helpful, but I don't think it's going to be visible.
Okay, I'd very much like to see the mock-ups.
All right, thanks, Sue. And should we go to Mr. Young? Arthur Young, please.
Okay, you should be able to
Hi, I'm Arthur Young, and I'm with my wife, Marie Lefton. We live at 113, apartment 5, and our deck abuts the Chuck and Carrie's deck as well. As Serge said, we have been in very cordial, excellent communications with Chuck and Carrie about all of this. Our primary concern was the emergency access. They've been wonderful about it. And with respect to the rest of their designs, it looks lovely to me. And Marie can say something if she wishes, but we're supportive of the whole process. Oh, and Rebecca too, you met with us. It was really nice. Thank you so much. And that's all our comments.
Thank you, Mr. Young.
All right, and I did receive an email from Elizabeth and Gonzaga de Montricard from 118 Marlborough Street, who live across, and they were in support of the project. They live across the alley at 118 Marlborough Street.
Okay, and Rebecca, you had a comment?
Thank you. Just briefly, I did want to mention to both Arthur and Serge's points. We have reached out to the ISD and the fire department specifically, and we did receive some feedback. We reached out to them last week, but we got it today, and they directed us towards an actual permitting process to go ahead through their typical protocols. So we couldn't get any kind of informal information, but we fully intend to go through and discuss this through their typical permitting processes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hey, did you see anybody else, Joe?
No, that's
Okay.
all we have.
All right, great. Well, let's go back to the motion.
Motion is to approve with the following provisos: that the millwork on the rear elevation, including the proposed door and window frames, are denied. That the proposed grille on the rear L deck is to be located or reconfigured so that it is not visible from the alley, to be confirmed by staff, and that all screening on both the rear L and roof conform with the guidelines and not be visible from the public way, to be confirmed by staff.
Do we have a second?
Second.
I think that was David, and I'll do the roll call. Gina Dimitriadis,
Yes.
Tom High,
Yes,
Franklin Ross,
Yes.
David Sampson,
Yes.
Kathy Connor,
Yes.
and Tom B. Nair.
Yes.
Okay, great. So Rebecca will set up something, when you're ready to do a mock-up, and I'll come out and take a look.
That sounds great. Thank you so much, Joe, and thank you to the commission for your time tonight.
Thank you, Rebecca. Take care.
Take care.
Okay, and before
Right, shall we move on?
Yep.
To the administrative approval? Do we have a motion to approve?
so moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank
Great.
you, David.
Second.
Oh, okay, we got David, Gina Dimitriadis,
Yes.
Tom High,
Yes,
Franklin Ross,
Abstain.
David Sampson,
Yes.
okay, Kathy Connor,
Yes.
and Tom B. Nair.
Yes.
Okay, staff
Okay,
update.
staff.
Yeah, we're going to be welcoming a new commissioner soon, who will be filling the member seat vacated by John Christensen, and that is Lisa Tharp. She has gone through the city council process, so she will be officially appointed by the mayor soon, and hopefully she'll be joining us in July.
great.
Got
Great.
big shoes to fill.
Yeah, yes, yeah. She has an interior design business, and she lives in the Back Bay and has her business in the Back Bay. So I think she's going to be a great addition, and she comes very well recommended from the Neighborhood Association in the Back Bay.
Great. Great. We'll look forward to meeting her and continuing our journey. Great. And do we have a motion to leave? Adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Okay, all in favor?
aye.
Yeah.
Great.
Aye.
Great.
All right.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you very much. We appreciate it. Bye-bye.
See you soon.